Well, hello, third grade. Welcome back for history. And today you're going to need your book. I already gave you an assignment to read the pages about the Lewis and Clark expedition. We did talk about the other day that President Thomas Jefferson had purchased the Louisiana Territory, and now he was asking Lewis, a man with the last name of Lewis and a man with the last name of Clark, to take this trip through the Louisiana Territory to find out what exactly came with that land. So we're going to talk about that today. Open your reading or open your history books to page 88, and I'm just going to go through and highlight some of the points here that are in the chapter about this expedition. What is an expedition? An expedition is a journey taken by a couple of people for a certain purpose. Now, this expedition, the whole purpose of this was to research that Louisiana territory, all of that land, to see what was there. What type of food was there? What type of plants were there? What type of animals? And so that's what these men were going to set out to do. So Meriwether Lewis was one of the main leaders of this expedition. Lewis knew a lot about Indians and the Indian ways, and how to live in the woods. So this is the primary reason that he was chosen to be one of the main leaders, because of the knowledge that he had. And then we have William Clark, who was another leader. He knew how to lead people. He knew how to make maps, how to survey land and make maps of that land. And so Jefferson knew that if he had these two people together leading this expedition, that more than likely it would be successful and they would get the information that they needed. So Jefferson was interested in science and discovery, so he told Lewis and Clark that when they left, they were to take careful notes. Everything that they saw, they were to write down. He told them to draw up different plants and animals that they saw. He also wanted them to have friendly meetings with the Indians. He wanted them to become friends with the Indians and let the Indians know that that Jefferson wanted to be friends with them, not to hurt them. So Jefferson also had another reason that he wanted Lewis and Clark to basically explore all of this land here. Jefferson wanted to know what was past the Louisiana Territory. What was over here in this land? Past the Rocky Mountains. What was here? He also wanted to find a passageway from the Louisiana Territory over to the Pacific Ocean, because he knew if he could find a passageway that went over to the Pacific Ocean, then he would have better trade opportunities with Asia. He already had a trade route going down the Mississippi River to go south down to Africa, so now he was thinking about trading with Asia. How would he do it? He needed a trade route, and so that was another one of their jobs, to find this. So in the spring of 1804, we find that Lewis and Clark left to go on their expedition. Now they took 40 men with them. These men had military background. All of the men had military background. Many of them were skilled in hunting and scouting. Many of them had knowledge of the different plants that they would be allowed to eat. Um, how to take care of animals, how to skin animals, how to clean animals. So these men were not novice. These were well educated, experienced men, and there were even several men with them who knew some of the Indian languages. So they were able to speak to the Indians in their own language. So these 40 men set out, and I read one article that said that most of these men were paid $25 a month to go on this expedition. Now, $25 a month today, we would barely be able to buy food. Probably couldn't unless you ate beans and bread and maybe some milk. So $25 a day, or I'm sorry, $25 a month is what these men were paid to go on this expedition with Lewis and Clark. So at first, Jefferson went to Congress and he asked them if he could have about $3,000 because that's what he thought would take care of the finances for this expedition. But in the end, when all the men went, they came back. It ended up costing them about $38,000. And so Jefferson had to go back to Congress and ask for more money, of course. So Lewis and Clark, as they went on this expedition, they took careful notes. They made maps. They wrote down everything that they saw, everything that they did, any Indians that they encountered. They wrote it all down. And if you look on page 90 in your history book, you'll see that there is a journal entry there. It says it was from 1805, and it looks like there was like a little map there that they drew of whatever land they were on at that time. And then on the right side, there's a partial journal from 1806. So they came back with a lot of information that Thomas Jefferson was able to use and to know that, his hope, Thomas Jefferson's hope was that, hey, if there's land over here, Britain owns some of this land. I think Spain owned the bottom half of the land down here, the California area. Then Thomas Jefferson wanted to know, is there a way we could get that land? Can we make America bigger? So that was one of his goals to do that. So soon after the group crossed the Rocky Mountains, this was the hardest part of their journey. So then the group went on and traveled down the river paths. The rivers here are the blue on the map, but they traveled these areas so they could find out, is there a route to the Pacific Ocean that they could take back and let Jefferson know they were there. Now, these here are pictures of what was called Jefferson's Peace Medals. These were given to the Indian chiefs that they met on the way. Basically, the Indian chief, before they would give them this medal, had to promise that they would be peaceful and show friendship to others around them, to other tribes. And if the Indian chief promised that, then Lewis and Clark would give them this peace medal from President Jefferson. So the expedition lasted about 2 years, from 1804 to 1806. And you can see here that, yes, they did find a trade passage from where they started here in St. Louis, Missouri, and it's outlined here in orange. They went up the Missouri River, then they went across to either the Columbia River and then out to the Pacific Ocean, or they could take the Yellowstone River, meet up with the Columbia River, and then out to the Pacific Ocean. So yes, there was a passageway, excuse me, that they would be able to do and take, and eventually that would open up trade with Asia and even Russia. So at the end of their journey, at the end of their 2 years and about 4 months, Lewis and Clark came back with journals of all kinds of plants and animals they had discovered. The journals showed that the men had discovered 178 new plants and 122 different animals. So you could probably Google that and find out more specific information. But I think that's pretty interesting that they found that many different plants and especially that many different animals. All right, so we're here to the main question. What were the purposes of the Lewis and Clark expedition? You will need to know this, so you might want to take that paper that you had yesterday, take that out, and add this question and answer to that paper. So what were the purposes of the Lewis and Clark expedition? One was to find out more about the Louisiana Territory. And in their journals, they gave all of that information of what they found out about the land. Number two, to make friends with the Indians. They wanted the Indians to know that we were peaceful. And then three, to find a passageway to the Pacific Ocean, which they did that going up using the Missouri River and going out to the Pacific Ocean. They were able to do that. So copy this information down on that sheet of paper that we used yesterday and put this in your black folder, and we will use it for our test, which will probably be it looks like maybe next Thursday or Friday. All right. Thank you. Have a good day.